Look, who's not overwhelmed? I had a whole list of all the things that are on my plate, right? And it was too much to even talk about. When I get through my tasks for the day of the week, I've already come up with 10 more, right? The to-do list stretch from here to eternity. Life is hella full. And it's easy to just say, I can't deal with all this allyship, anti-racism stuff. I support the cause, but I barely have time to breathe. Well, sure. But let me ask you this. What if justice wasn't something extra, but something woven into the everyday? It can be done. Here are a few tips. First of all, remember, you don't have to do it all, and you don't have to do it all in a day. Busyness is one of today's most believable excuses for inaction. Sometimes it's due to logistics, like I said, work, childcare, survival. Sometimes it's emotional, the overwhelm of knowing once we start paying attention that there's always going to be more pain, more need, more injustice, more to address. But the result of doing nothing is the same. Nothing changes. And so if you are in a position where real world pressures are close to or even literally unsustainable, of course you get a pass from taking frontline action. But if you do have some capacity, here are some women to gather inspiration from. They always found a way to act, even in small moments, even when the world demanded everything else from them. I'm thinking about Bangladesh in the early 1900s, where Begum Rokeya Sakhawat Hossain juggled advocacy, writing, and founding the first Muslim girls' school in Kolkata, all in an era when simply leaving the house as a woman was a revolutionary act. Or Dame Winnie Cooper, who led the historic 1975 Maori Land March across New Zealand at age 80. Now, she really showed that while physical energy may change, the call to justice does not ever retire. From my book, you may remember Anna May Wong, who used her stardom to challenge how the film industry saw Asian people. Born in Los Angeles to Chinese American parents, she became Hollywood's first Chinese American movie star. And then she openly criticized and rebelled against the racist typecasting and anti-miscegenation rules that kept her from three-dimensional leading roles. She actually left the US in order to find better roles in Europe and China instead. And her carefully crafted screen presence and amazing fashion sense turned her into an international icon. But she also insisted on being recognized as a serious artist and as a Chinese American woman whose culture was much more than an exotic stereotype. There's also Ojibwe writer Jane Johnson Schoolcraft of the early 19th century, who wrote poetry and stories in both Ojibwe and English that preserved her people's oral traditions. She insisted that indigenous stories and language belonged in print culture, and her bicultural writing prowess helped make Native identity visible in a literary world that tried to ignore it. None of these women had spare time. They chose again and again to make liberation a priority, not just a line on a list, but a lens through which every list was viewed. So, I would say anti-racism does not demand that you quit your job, abandon your family, run for office, etc., etc. As I said, we don't deal in binaries or extremes here. What it does is ask you to notice who's included and who isn't. Start there.